In a town hardened by the unforgiving winds of the frontier, where pride often masked pain and loneliness was a quiet companion, there lived a man whose tears were met with ridicule rather than understanding. The townsfolk whispered behind hands and turned away from the loner who dared to show a vulnerability they could neither face nor fathom. Yet, beneath his rugged exterior and solitude lay a heart heavy with grief. A grief that would soon reveal a truth the town had long chosen to ignore. This man, cast aside and mocked for his emotions, carried a burden few could see. He was a silent witness to the forgotten stories, the children who had slipped through the cracks of a world too busy surviving to remember. When tragedy struck one such child, unnoticed and unloved, it was this loner who stepped forward, not with words, but with a profound act of compassion that would shake the very foundations of the town's conscience. The funeral he led was unlike any other, simple, somber, and filled with an aching honesty that echoed through the empty streets and into the hearts of those who had once turned away. In leading the farewell of a child the town had forgotten, he forced the people to confront their own neglect and the weight of their silence. His tears, once a source of mockery, became a powerful call to remembrance and redemption. Through this act, the loner transformed from an outcast into a guardian of the town's lost innocence, reminding everyone that behind every forgotten face lies a story worth telling. His grief was not a weakness, but a fierce love that challenged a community to awaken from its indifference. In that quiet, unassuming funeral, the town was forced to reckon with what it meant to truly see and care for one another. Join me as we uncover the moving story of the loner who cried when no one else would, and how his courage to mourn the forgotten changed a town forever. A story of loss, love, and the healing power of remembering what others choose to forget. In the dusty streets of a forgotten frontier town, the loner was a figure often seen but rarely understood. His weathered face, marked by years of solitude, carried a heaviness that no man dared to acknowledge. When tears slipped silently down his cheeks, the townsfolk laughed, not out of cruelty, but out of their own fear of confronting pain. Vulnerability was a weakness in a land where survival demanded toughness, and the man's quiet grief became a source of whispered ridicule rather than compassion. Yet behind those tears was a heart burdened with stories untold and sorrows unshared. The loner lived on the outskirts, distanced not only by geography, but by the invisible walls of judgment and indifference. He knew the town's every secret, the broken promises, the forgotten faces, the children left to wander alone without care or notice. He carried their stories as though they were his own, a silent guardian for those whom the world had abandoned. The child whose funeral he would lead was one such soul, a fragile life erased by neglect and the town's hurried steps toward progress. As word of the child's death spread, the town's response was muted, an inconvenient truth best ignored. They buried the news beneath daily toil and whispered rumors, hoping to forget the pain that came with recognition. But the loner, whose heart refused to turn away, felt the weight of this loss keenly. His sorrow became a beacon, calling him to act where others chose silence. He stepped forward not with loud protest, but with a quiet determination to honor a life overlooked. The funeral preparations were humble and almost secretive, the town reluctant to confront what the loner sought to expose. Yet, in his resolve, he found unexpected allies, those who too had felt the sting of forgotten grief and hidden loss. Together, they prepared to give the child the farewell denied in life, a ceremony marked by sincerity and an aching honesty the town desperately needed. It was a moment poised to challenge their collective conscience and stir the dormant humanity within. In leading the funeral, the loner became more than a man isolated by circumstance. He became the voice for the voiceless, the memory for the forgotten. His tears, once scorned, now spoke to every heart unwilling to admit its own neglect. This simple act of mourning held the power to awaken a town and force it to remember what it had chosen to forget. The quiet dignity of that day would forever alter the course of many lives. The funeral day dawned with a somber stillness that seemed to hold the breath of the entire town. The loner stood at the forefront, his shoulders squared against the weight of sorrow and expectation. The townspeople gathered hesitantly, their eyes avoiding the small, simple coffin that lay draped with a faded cloth, the last tribute to a child who had known too little love in life. For many, this was an uncomfortable reminder of their own failings, but none could deny the raw truth carried by the man who had chosen to lead the farewell. As the service began, the loner's voice, steady and sincere, cut through the heavy silence. He spoke not only of loss, but of remembrance, of the importance of seeing those who slip through the cracks of society. His words wove a tapestry of shared humanity, binding the crowd together in a collective reckoning. In that moment, the town's laughter and whispers gave way to tears and reflection, as the loner's grief touched the hearts of those who had long turned away. The child's story emerged from the shadows, brought to life by the loner's memories and the whispered accounts of those few who had noticed the small soul wandering alone. The community faced the uncomfortable truth that in their rush to survive and thrive, they had overlooked the very innocence they claimed to protect. The funeral became a mirror, reflecting their neglect and challenging them to do better, not just in mourning, but in living. As the sun climbed higher, casting its golden light on the assembled crowd, a transformation took place. The loner's tears were no longer a sign of weakness, but a call to action. Faces once hardened by cynicism softened with empathy, and hearts once closed by indifference opened to the possibility of change. The child's memory became a catalyst, inspiring a newfound commitment to care for one another, especially those most vulnerable. The day closed with a promise unspoken, yet deeply felt, a vow to remember the forgotten and to honor their lives by building a community where no child would be left unseen or unloved. The loner, once mocked for his sorrow, had led the town through its darkest moment and emerged as a quiet hero. His courage to grieve openly had awakened a healing that would shape the town's future in profound ways. In the days that followed the funeral, the town was enveloped in a quiet reflection that lingered long after the last shovelful of earth covered the child's grave. The laughter and derision that once surrounded the loner's tears were replaced by a reverent silence, as neighbors confronted the pain they had tried to ignore. The man's act of mourning had pierced the veil of apathy, awakening a collective conscience that had long been dormant. Slowly, conversations began to emerge. Conversations about community, responsibility, and the fragile lives often overlooked in the harsh realities of frontier existence. The loner himself became an unlikely figure of guidance, his grief a bridge between isolation and connection. Though he had spent years on the margins, his willingness to openly mourn sparked a movement of empathy that rippled through the town. People began to see him not as an outcast, but as a guardian of their shared humanity, a reminder that sorrow was not a weakness, but a testament to love and loss. His quiet strength invited others to lower their walls and confront the parts of their lives they had long buried beneath pride and neglect. But healing was not swift, nor was it easy. The town faced harsh realities, poverty, hardship, and the constant struggle for survival that defined the Old West. Yet, in embracing the pain of loss, the community found a renewed sense of purpose. They began to care for one another in small but meaningful ways, supporting families, watching over children, and rekindling a spirit of togetherness that had been frayed by fear and indifference. The funeral had been a catalyst, but it was the ongoing acts of kindness that would shape the town's future. The child's grave, simple and unadorned, became a sacred place where townsfolk gathered, not just to mourn, but to remember the importance of every life. It stood as a solemn reminder that no one should be forgotten, not in life, nor in death. The loner, whose tears had once been mocked, often visited the site, finding solace and strength in the quiet presence of the community's commitment to change. His journey from solitude to connection embodied the profound transformation unfolding across the settlement. As the seasons turned and the landscape changed, the legacy of that forgotten child and the man who mourned him became woven into the fabric of the town. It was a story of grief turned to grace, isolation transformed into belonging, a testament to the enduring power of compassion in the unforgiving world of the Old West. Life on the frontier remained as challenging as ever, but the town was no longer the fractured place it had once been. The loner's grief had sparked a collective awakening, fostering a community that valued every member, especially the vulnerable and forgotten. Neighbors began to look out for one another, lending hands and hearts in ways both big and small. The barriers of suspicion and judgment that had divided them slowly crumbled, replaced by bonds forged in shared hardship and renewed hope. The man who had once walked alone now found himself surrounded by a network of support, his sorrow embraced rather than shunned. His tears had opened the door for others to express their own pain, creating a space where healing could begin. Together, they faced the relentless challenges of frontier life, harsh winters, scarce resources, and the ever-present threat of violence, with a resilience strengthened by unity. The town's heartbeat grew steadier, pulsing with the promise of a better tomorrow. Yet, beneath the surface, the struggle to maintain this newfound compassion was ongoing. Old wounds and fears lingered, reminding everyone that change required constant effort. But the memory of the child's funeral and the man who led it served as a compass, guiding the community toward kindness and accountability. It was a daily reminder that every life mattered, and that ignoring sorrow only deepened the wounds of the past. In quiet moments, the loner reflected on how far he and the town had come. His tears, once a source of scorn, had become a symbol of courage, a testament to the strength found in vulnerability. He understood now that grief was not a burden to bear alone, but a shared journey toward healing and connection. His path had led him from isolation to purpose, from loneliness to leadership. As dusk settled over the frontier, painting the sky in hues of amber and violet, the town stood transformed. The laughter that once mocked was replaced by voices joined in remembrance and hope. The loner's tears had cleansed not just his own heart, but the soul of the community, reminding all that even in the harshest of places, compassion could bloom and heal the deepest wounds. The transformation in the town did not come easily. Old habits and fears clung stubbornly to the people, making progress feel fragile and sometimes fleeting. Yet, the man who had once been an outcast became a quiet pillar of strength, his grief turning into a source of hope for many. His willingness to mourn openly inspired others to acknowledge their own pain and to seek solace not in silence, but in community. The simple act of leading that forgotten child's funeral sparked a chain reaction, a healing that reached far beyond the boundaries of the town. This new spirit of empathy began to shape daily life in subtle but meaningful ways. Neighbors checked on one another, shared what little they had, and watched over the children who might otherwise have slipped through the cracks. Stories of kindness, once rare and whispered, now grew louder and more frequent. The town's dusty streets were still tough and unforgiving, but beneath the surface, a warmth was spreading, one fueled by the collective understanding that every person mattered, and every loss left a mark. The man himself was changed, not just by grief, but by the connections he forged. His solitude gave way to a sense of belonging, a realization that even in a world as wild and merciless as the Old West, no one had to face their battles alone. He took on the role of a guardian, not only for the memory of the forgotten child, but for the fragile hope blossoming among the people. His tears, once mocked, became a symbol of courage and compassion that challenged the town to be better. Despite the hardships that persisted, scarce resources, harsh weather, and the ever-present threat of violence, the community found new strength in unity. The funeral was a turning point, a moment that reminded them all of their shared humanity and the power of remembrance. It was a call to care for the unseen, to honor the forgotten, and to face the future together. The loner's grief became the heartbeat of a town learning to heal. In the quiet evenings, beneath a sky full of stars, the man often stood by the grave of the child, feeling the presence of those who had been lost, but never truly forgotten. His journey from loneliness to leadership was a testament to the profound ways that sorrow can be transformed into hope, and how even the smallest acts of remembrance can change the course of a community's destiny. With the passing seasons, the town's transformation deepened, grounded in the lessons learned from loss and the courage to mourn. The man and the memory of the child became inseparable symbols of resilience, a reminder that even in the harshest places, kindness, and empathy could take root. The townsfolk began to carry these values forward, weaving them into the fabric of everyday life. Where once indifference reigned, a new culture of care and connection blossomed. The man's role evolved as well. He became a mentor and a quiet leader, guiding others through their own struggles with the wisdom born of his experience. He taught that grief was not a sign of weakness, but a natural part of healing, and that confronting pain together was the first step toward rebuilding. His presence offered comfort to those who had felt isolated, showing that the strength to face the future could be found in the bonds forged through shared sorrow. Challenges remained, as they always do on the frontier. Yet the town now faced them with a renewed spirit, united by the memory of the child and the man who honored that memory with tears and courage. Together, they weathered storms, both literal and figurative, bolstered by the knowledge that they were not alone. The sense of community, once fragile, grew stronger with each passing day. The funeral, once a simple ceremony for a forgotten child, had ignited a movement of compassion that reshaped the town's identity. It became a story told around campfires and in homes, a story that reminded everyone that no one should be invisible and that every life deserves to be honored. The man's tears became a lasting legacy, a testament to the transformative power of empathy. As the sun set on the frontier, casting a warm glow over the town, the man stood surrounded by community that had learned to see, to feel, and to care. His journey from lonely mourner to respected leader was a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the toughest places, humanity can prevail through acts of love and remembrance. The change in the town was palpable, not just in words but in the quiet actions of its people. Neighbors who once kept to themselves began to reach out, offering help without hesitation, sharing meals, and listening more attentively. The man who had once been mocked for his tears became a symbol of resilience, teaching the community that vulnerability was a form of strength. His grief had opened a door for others to embrace their own pain, transforming isolation into solidarity. The town was no longer a collection of individuals, but a family bound by shared experiences and mutual care. Yet, the scars of the past lingered beneath the surface, reminding everyone that healing was a continuous journey. Old grudges and fears did not vanish overnight, and new challenges tested the town's newfound unity. But through every hardship, the lessons of the forgotten child and the man who mourned him echoed in their hearts. They had learned that survival was not just about enduring the harshness of the land, but about nurturing the bonds that kept them human amidst the wilderness. The man took it upon himself to ensure that no one would ever be forgotten again. He organized gatherings to honor those lost and those struggling, creating spaces where stories could be shared and wounds could begin to heal. His leadership was quiet yet profound, rooted in empathy and the understanding that every life mattered. Through his example, the town rediscovered its soul, a beacon of hope shining amidst the dust and danger of the frontier. As seasons turned and years passed, the community grew stronger and more compassionate. The memory of the child who had been forgotten became a sacred trust, a reminder that every person deserved to be seen and loved. The man's tears, once ridiculed, were now a powerful legacy, inspiring generations to come. His courage to mourn openly had changed the course of a town and the lives of everyone within it. In the stillness of the night, beneath the wide-open sky, the man would often stand by the child's grave, feeling the presence of a life that had ignited so much change. His journey from loneliness to leadership was a testament to the power of grief transformed into hope, a beacon for all who face the shadows and seek the light beyond. The town, forever changed by that one act of courage, began to build a future grounded in remembrance and care. The man's role as a guardian of memory extended beyond the child's funeral. He became a living testament to the idea that every life deserved dignity and honor. His story inspired others to step forward, to care for those who were vulnerable, and to challenge the indifference that had once threatened to consume them all. Families grew closer, neighbors watched over one another, and children learned the value of empathy and community from a young age. The lessons born from sorrow shaped the town's identity, infusing it with a resilience that was more than mere survival. It was thriving in the face of adversity. The once silent grief became a chorus of voices united in hope and determination. But the frontier's harsh realities remained, and the town faced new trials. Harsh winters, disputes over land, and the ever-present danger of violence tested their resolve. Yet, the foundation laid by the man's compassion and the community's awakening held firm. They faced each challenge together, drawing strength from the bonds forged through shared pain and healing. The barn where the child's funeral had taken place stood as a symbol, not just of loss, but of renewal. It became a place where stories were told, memories honored, and the spirit of the Old West was kept alive through acts of kindness and remembrance. The town's transformation was a living legacy, reminding all who passed through that even the smallest acts of courage could reshape a world. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with colors of hope and promise, the man looked upon a town no longer divided by fear or neglect. His tears had watered the seeds of change, nurturing a community that had learned to see, to care, and to stand together. In the heart of the Old West, love had triumphed over loneliness, and remembrance had become a powerful force for healing. The story of a loner who wept for the forgotten child became woven into the very fabric of the town's history, told and retold as a lesson in humanity and the power of compassion. His tears, once met with mockery, were now revered as a catalyst for change, a reminder that beneath every hardened exterior lies a heart capable of great love. The community, forever altered by that one quiet act of mourning, embraced a new way of living, one where no one was left unseen or unloved. Their collective grief had turned into a shared strength, a foundation for hope in the unforgiving wilderness. The man's journey from isolation to leadership inspired many who had once felt powerless or ignored. His courage to show vulnerability in a place that prized stoicism challenged the town's old notions of strength. Through his example, others found the bravery to confront their own sorrows and to extend kindness where there had been indifference. This ripple effect transformed the community into a place where empathy was as essential as survival, and where every life was honored with dignity. Even as the town grew and changed, the lessons of that day remained a guiding light. Challenges persisted, bitter winters, disputes, and the harsh realities of frontier life. But the spirit of remembrance and care endured. The man and the memory of the child became symbols of resilience, reminding all who walked the dusty streets that healing comes not from forgetting, but from facing pain together. Their story was a beacon of hope in a world too often darkened by neglect. In quiet moments beneath the vast prairie sky, the man reflected on the transformation that grief had brought. What began as a solitary act of mourning had blossomed into a community's rebirth. His tears, once scorned, had watered the seeds of compassion that now flourished across the town. Through sorrow, he had found connection. Through loss, he had found purpose. His legacy was a testament to the enduring power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. As dawn painted the horizon with soft light, the town awoke to a new day, a day shaped by the courage of one man who dared to cry when no one else would, and by the memory of a child who would never be forgotten. Their story lives on, a timeless reminder that even in the wildest and harshest of places, the human heart can find its way to hope. The legacy of the loner and the forgotten child stands as a testament to the transformative power of compassion and remembrance. Their story continues to inspire those who hear it, a call to recognize the unseen, to honor the overlooked, and to embrace vulnerability as a source of strength. In a world often ruled by silence and solitude, their journey illuminates the path toward healing and unity, showing that even the smallest acts of love can reshape the course of lives and communities. This tale invites us all to question how we respond to pain and loss in our own lives. Are we willing to stand with those who mourn alone? Will we remember the forgotten and act with kindness when no one is watching? The man's tears and the child's memory challenge us to be better, to build communities where empathy reigns and where every life is cherished. The town, once fractured by neglect and fear, flourished because one man dared to show his grief openly. His leadership was not born from power but from profound humanity, teaching that true strength lies in the courage to feel deeply and to act selflessly. Their story is a beacon for all who struggle to find hope amid hardship, a reminder that love, no matter how quiet or unseen, has the power to change everything. As stars blanket the prairie night, the spirit of the loner and the forgotten child shines bright, guiding future generations to live with compassion, courage, and remembrance. Their legacy is etched not only in the soil of the Old West, but in the hearts of all who believe in the enduring power of kindness. And so, the tale of the town that laughed at a man for crying, until he led the funeral of a child they forgot, remains a timeless call to honor the lost and to embrace the healing strength found in shared sorrow and community. In the unforgiving expanse of the Old West, where survival often meant hardening one's heart, the story of the loner who cried for a forgotten child teaches us a profound lesson. True strength lies not in silence, but in the courage to feel deeply and act with compassion. His tears, once mocked, became a powerful catalyst for change, reminding us all that every life matters, even those overlooked by the world around them. This tale challenges us to look beyond appearances and to honor the stories hidden beneath quiet grief. Throughout this journey, we have seen how vulnerability can become a bridge rather than a barrier, uniting a fractured community and awakening hearts long dulled by hardship. The man's willingness to mourn openly sparked a ripple of empathy that transformed a town, proving that healing begins when we confront pain together. In a world that often rewards stoicism, this story invites us to embrace our own humanity, recognizing that compassion is the greatest act of courage. As you reflect on this narrative, ask yourself, where in your own life might you extend grace to those who grieve silently? What forgotten stories might be waiting for someone brave enough to listen? The Old West may seem distant, but its lessons echo loudly today, urging us to build communities where no one is invisible and where every tear shed is met with understanding, not judgment. This story is a call to action to live with greater empathy and awareness. It encourages us to stand beside those marginalized or overlooked, to transform grief into healing, and to remember that the smallest acts of kindness can leave the most lasting impact. The loner's journey shows that it is never too late to foster connection and create a legacy of love in even the harshest places. If this story moved you, please join our community by subscribing to the channel, liking this video, and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps keep these powerful stories alive and spreads the message that courage and compassion can change lives. Together, we can build a world where every life is seen, heard, and honored.